everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official YouTube channel. Today, week 19 of the 365-day movie challenge update. So, last week, I may or may have not announced, I really don't remember, that this week, week 19, would be a film week revolving around disaster movies. Well, that didn't work out according to plan. If you didn't know that was the plan already, it's okay, forget it, because it didn't really work out. There was a lot of new releases I had to see last week, and there's just so much going on. Girlfriend graduating this week, so there's just so much that I didn't really get around to it. I ended up just watching the new movies and then just a couple random films. I did watch one disaster movie, though. Well, I guess you could kind of count two. But other than that, I just kind of watched something random. So I apologize. We'll eventually get disaster movies, hopefully, later down the line. But if you've not heard what I'm already doing this week, it is Hell Week, which means I'm watching what some of the films that are considered some of the worst films of all time. That's week 20, what I'm calling Hell's Week. If you're not following me or you're confused on how I'm announcing this or where I've announced it, right here, at Jacob Tiranno on Twitter and Instagram, right here. You can follow me on Twitter. I do daily recaps and reviews of what I've been watching, as well as other fun stuff. Instagram, I'm always posting fun photos, sometimes of what I've been watching or what movies I'm seeing. So make sure to follow me on those, and that's the best way to keep up. Anyway, week 19, let's recap what I watched last week. Okay, so for day 128 of the 365-day challenge, I lied. I'm starting with day 127. In which I watched X-Men Apocalypse. Now, if you've not seen my video review for X-Men Apocalypse, make sure to click the white eye right above my head. A bunch of links will drop down. Click my X-Men Apocalypse review and watch it. It does run a bit long. I do run a bit repetitive. It's, sometimes it's hard for me to jump from doing reviews by myself with James. Me and James are constantly bouncing off of each other. So sometimes when I do my reviews myself, I feel like things are too short, so I keep going, and sometimes I end up being repetitive. It's kind of the case in my X-Men review, but I still think it's a very solid, informative review. Make sure to go check it out. But to give you a very quick breakdown, I was very underwhelmed with the new X-Men movie. I don't think it was awful. I don't think it was great. I think it was like, I thought it was very mediocre, but make sure to go check out that review for more information. Moving on, day 128 was the only disaster movie that I really watched, and that was the 1970 film Airport. Now, I think Airport is ridiculously overstuffed. I've seen Airplane before, and I've never seen Airport. My good friend Jeffrey K. Howard, Vegas film critic, who I've mentioned many times. You can check out his channel, again, in that white eye. Is at times entertaining. Like, he lent it to me, and he wanted me to watch the series, and I think that at times the movie's entertaining. But overall, like the over 2-hour movie was just like too much for me. So I actually was just like, take these back for now. I'm just not in the right mood to kind of watch these movies. It just didn't give me any real characters invested. I think besides the characters played by Helen Hayes, who I thought was really, really good, and even though there's like 7 or 8 characters, I wasn't really invested in any of them. It's a film that I really thought I would enjoy, but I didn't. It was tedious. I wasn't a fan of the dialogue, and I just couldn't find myself getting into it. Maybe I'll revisit the rest of the Airports down the line, but as of right now, I was like, all right, Jeff, you take these back, because I know he's been wanting to get those back, because he's been hyping them up so much for me, he probably wants to watch them again. I was like, all right, go ahead, take it back, maybe down the line. And then, there was another movie that he lent me, but, there was an issue, so I ended up not watching that, and then my disaster week all kind of got messed up. But anyway, day 129 of 365-day challenge, I watched the upcoming film from Jodie Foster called Money Monster. Well, it was upcoming. If you haven't seen our review for that, check that white eye. Again, links will drop down. You'll be able to see our full review of Money Monster. I thought Money Monster was decent. I don't think it was amazing. I think it was it was consistent with what it should be. I think George Clooney is very charming and charismatic. He is quite good. Jack O'Connell, I thought, was quite good in this movie as well. I think their chemistry really is what kind of creates the excitement in this movie. Direction was fine. It didn't try to be something very big or something different than other than it usually is. But after seeing all these really heavy, it just felt back to back BVS. Everything just felt so kind of big. Money Monster just kind of felt like a refreshment, just something kind of simple, something plain, not plain in like a bad way, but just something much more on a smaller level, without Civil War or X-Men or these huge 2.5-hour epics. Money Monster just kind of felt like a very refreshing palate cleanser, if you will. Day 130, I finally concluded my over a year long journey to conclude the Children of the Corn franchise. My good friends Eric and Sherry, who've actually been on our podcast for a long, long time ago. We talked about Jaws. We started The Children of the Corn. And actually, when I was doing Throwback Thursday reviews on our YouTube channel, which maybe I'll bring back, I don't know. If you want me to bring back, slap a like on this. I reviewed the first Children of the Corn. And then we continued, and then of course people get busy. We didn't get to do, because we'd have to watch them on dinner night. So I'd go to their house, we'd have dinner, we'd watch the movies. But finally, after probably like a year, we finished it with the 8th film, Children of the Corn Genesis. And this film was half decent, half awful. It starts with such potential, and is like the only film that goes in a very, very different direction in the Children of the Corn franchise. But then it goes haywire in the final act. It just kind of loses all sustainability. Everything about it good loses it. It just kind of goes nowhere. And you know, it concludes the Corn series, and I'm glad it's, you know, sadly, I'm glad that it's over and I don't have to watch any of these films anymore, because none of them are really stuck with me. Even the original first Children of the Corn film did not have a major impact on me. Like, I thought it was okay. Like, I don't think I could... If you asked me, I could probably kind of put them in order, but out of all the 8 films, I don't think I've really loved any of them. And that's kind of a bummer. I mean, I don't know. Just thinking, maybe Stephen King made The Children of the Corn a short story for a reason. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be extended into 8 films. Just a thought. Moving on, day 131, I watched the thrilling documentary from 2015 called The Nightmare. I think The Nightmare was a decent blend of horror and horror storytelling and informative thriller. You know, because this is this really interesting story about sleep paralysis and what people have to deal with and the nightmares that they have. And it brings a real, like, creepy tone to life, right? Like, it's making these people reimagine their greatest fears and, like, the most terrifying, they're, like, the biggest horrifying things that they experienced during sleep paralysis. And, like, they offer some really fantastic horror imagery. Like, by recreating these fears, there's some really, like, fantastic, scary stuff that even kind of, like, scared me, for being a documentary. It's like, oh my god, that's kind of creepy. Like, just imagining that and having that in your head. You know, it's making these people kind of recreating their accounts, and it's quite creepy. But, I mean, and like, just that way alone, it's told so fascinating. It's not just like this kind of generic documentary, but eventually I did lose interest, and I think that's because maybe the movie shouldn't have been as long as it was. I think by the you know, it keeps retelling us all these scary stories, and we're going through so many people that it feels just kind of repetitive a bit, and it just kind of feels like it falls in this formula. And even though I enjoyed the imagery from it, and I actually have been thinking about it, it just wasn't a movie that I thought, like, was like something I'd talk about or recommend to someone. I was, you know, I haven't seen it was from the same director from Room 237, the documentary on The Shining, which I've yet to see, but I've heard is not very good. But this film I thought was alright. Like, I thought it was a really interesting... I thought it started really strong, but I think it would have really benefited from being maybe 70 minutes or 80, or even, you know, 75 rather than 90, 95. So, good, interesting. If sleep paralysis or sleep disorders interest you, I think it's a great thing to check out. If you do suffer from sleep paralysis, maybe it's an interesting way to kind of connect to people, because it's so interesting to see all these different people having similar issues while they're in sleep paralysis. But to me, you know, I couldn't find myself to be, like, really excited towards the end of the film. Moving on, day 132, I watched the upcoming animated film, The Angry Birds movie, and unfortunately, I cannot say how I feel about the Angry Birds movie, so you'll just have to check out Chasing Cinema's YouTube channel, which is right here. And just hit that subscribe button. So on Friday, when my review of this film comes out, you can check it out as well. So thanks so much. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for that. But unfortunately, can't review that. Day 133 of the 365-day movie challenge. I watched the Stanford Prison Experiment, 2015 film, which by far was my favorite movie that I saw all week. I mean, to be honest, it was like probably the only really solid film that I saw in this entire week. I enjoyed it more than X-Men Apocalypse. I enjoyed it more than Money Monster. I mean, I thought this was a really wonderfully shot, you know, very clever, wonderfully acted movie, right? Like, this movie is just very powerful. I think it's all led by wonderful performances all around from All the actors, both. And if you don't know what the Stanford Prison Experiment is, it was an experiment in the 70s where the psychology professor wanted to recreate a prison setting, and he selected guys to be guards and guys to be prisoners. And there was all these kind of ideas of what would happen, and the prisoners just kind of take the power to their head. And I think that's what's really interesting. This is a movie that will have you thinking afterwards and wanting to talk about it. It's a movie, if you don't know or you're familiar with the experiment, because pretty much if you're in psychology, you've learned about this experiment. And I mean, this experiment is pretty well wide known. And I'm pretty sure it's not the only film about this experiment. But it's going to want you to talk about it. You're going to want to bring it up to people and tell them about the story. And you're going to want to ask them questions and see what they're thinking. But it is quite frustrating, like seeing what these kids have to go through and like watching it kind of progress. And like you're just like so kind of frustrated at the situation. And I don't really want to spoil too much, but like you're just like wanting these kids to like leave, like just go, and it gets to the point where they really can't go, and it's kind of frightening. And you get and I think it's like this huge gut punch, and I think that's why this film is so wonderfully shot, because it's shot, it feels claustrophobic. It's like just the way the camera angles and everything, it feels like you're stuck, and it feels like you're trapped in this small place. I mean, it really feels claustrophobic, and it's also shot in such a way where tension and fear just kind of build up so perfectly that it really, like, you really feel like you're in there with them. You feel trapped. You feel like you have no control. You feel that you're losing your chances of getting out. You feel like just giving up, and I think that's a really, really wonderful thing to say, that a movie's visual aspects can really make you feel that way. But I mean, it's also the performances as well. I think it's a film that's about something important too, which as far as me, is something that I really care about with film. I mean, it really talks about power and how we use roles to define ourselves as human beings, and how we let those roles influence how we act and how we are towards people. I mean, it's a really, really wonderful movie. I'd really recommend checking that out. Again, guys, if you're not following me on Twitter or Instagram, make sure to do that at Jacob Tiranno right here. I really, really recommend doing so. You see my tweets. I'm reviewing movies every single day, as well as doing Instagram posts and all that fun stuff. Posts from CinemaCon, like all the stuff that I do, you'll see what I get to do on CinemaCon. I'm sorry, on Instagram. But for next week, so this one is a rough one, guys. Week 20, right? Like, I'm so far, I can't believe it's already week 20 of the 365-day movie challenge. But I've been doing this for a while, and I really enjoyed it. And so I decided to make next week really hard. I was like, I need more of a challenge, so I'm going to really test myself. So I'm going to be watching for week 20, which I'm going to be calling Hell's Week. I'm going to be watching the films that are considered the worst films of all time. Now, granted, I'm going to be watching just a week of awfulness. Some 0%ers on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm going to be watching other films that are so bad that they become famous and cult classics for being so bad. I'm just going to try to endure 7 days of the worst cinema ever. That's my goal. And, if you guys have any recommendations, shoot them at me. I have an idea of where I'm going right now, but if you guys have any recommendations, let me know. I'll do my best to kind of incorporate them. I think what's interesting, though, is that like a lot of people that we were already talking yesterday, because I tweeted that out yesterday while I was starting already, that people were like recommending movies that, like movies that aren't really intentional to be very good movies. For instance, like Sharknado 3. Like, I haven't seen Sharknado 3. I'm not talking about the movie. I'm just using an example. Like Sharknado 3 being bad isn't as bad as like a movie that was meant to be really good being bad. Like Sharknado 3, the filmmakers are kind of aware that they're making a movie that's goofy and out there and really kind of crazy. So like that's not a movie I'm interested in seeing. Like for this week at least. I'm looking for the films that really were meant to do something, or at least try to be good. Like, I'm not saying that Sharknado is not trying to be good, but I just mean that the movie knows it's kind of out there and goofy, where this film was kind of serious in trying to make a movie. For instance, I'll be watching the Island of Dr. Moreau with Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. Like, that's an example. I've seen Plan 9 from Outer Space. I've gotten a lot of tweets about that. Seen that film. And, it's really hard to kind of judge what people think are the worst films of all time. But, there's a great list from Screen Rant that listed the movies that are 0%ers. as well as just some other like lists that recommend some of the worst films of all time. So I'm trying to pick and choose the ones that are all on that list. Fortunately, there are many of them that I've already seen. So, but it's going to be an interesting week, and I want you to follow along again at Jacob Tiranno. Guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. If you have any questions or recommendations, let me know down here in the comment sections below. If you want to talk about any of the movies I did, I'd be glad to talk to you down there. If you enjoyed this video and enjoy watching me go through this challenge, make sure to slap a like. Or if you want to bring back Throwback Thursday reviews, let me know. The best way to never miss a video review or week update is to hit that subscribe button right down here. Like I said, this Friday I'll be reviewing Angry Birds as well as Neighbors 2. I've already reviewed X-Men Apocalypse, guys, way before pretty much everyone. So make sure to hit that white eye up here. Links will drop down. You'll be able to see all the links I've been talking about. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jacob Tiranno, and please continue chasing cinema.